You know that in Autogefühl we also present you cars that are way above 100,000 euros or dollars, but Autogefühl is about the whole model range in the automotive industry. And you also requested that I show you some budget cars, and today is the Suzuki Celerio. On Autogefühl, your number one resource for in-depth car reviews and your number one community to discuss cars. We're going to examine exterior, interior, versatility of course, and the driving experience with this mini car here. And I can tell you so far, there's more to say about this car than you would usually expect. So let's go now with Autogefühl in full HD, full screen and full length. Let's go. The Suzuki Celerio is a true world car, so available on a lot of markets, and that's also the reason for they keep the design rather conservative. And in the front, smile, it has a smiling front, pretty simple all from the design. And in Germany, for example, it starts at about or just below 10,000 euros, and that's comparable to other mini cars in that segment. In the side profile you can see we have the higher trim here called Comfort, and that comes with pretty nice 14-inch rims in a two-color scheme. They're tiny but still look very nice, and you see the basic layout of this car is really form follows function, that you don't lose too much space on the interior right here and also ends right there. And then I make a freeway that you can check out the side profile totally, and the length 3 meters 60 or 11 foot 8. Also the rear is about not being spectacular, not craving for attention. So it's a really basic design that could also been here for 5-10 years ago. It's different to some of the other modern mini cars that really say, oh, I want to be something special, something unique, and I want to hear your opinion about this approach. Look at the color here. I think it could be Thomas Blue, couldn't it? If you're not subscribed to Autogefühl, because this blue here, bright blue is my favorite color, and always when I see such colors, we have the running gag to call it Thomas Blue. And really nice. And underneath the hood, funny mechanism to hold the hood open. 3 cylinders only, 1 liter of displacement, naturally aspirated engine. I think it's still good because it promises good durability. There's no turbo that could possibly fail. 68 horsepower and 0 to 100 kilometers or 0 to 60 miles an hour is 13 seconds. That's of course not the best performance here, but it also doesn't have to be. And this engine here promises about official consumption about just about 4 liters. Can we reach that consumption figure approximately? That will be in the driving review, and I can already tell you this engine holds even more than it promises. Soon more again in the driving part. And by the way, in India with this car there's also a diesel available, but I mean in general petrol engine here for this car will do just fine. That's the best pick definitely. This is the car key, pretty standard, still the real deal, but you can also close and open it here twice, by the way, if you also want to open the trunk or the rear doors. Then, well, a normal door closing sound. Then let's get inside, and we see a lot of plain black plastics. Also the steering wheel here as well, also on the dashboard, but I mean that's this price segment. However, we've also seen some cars where it's, for example, better done. Best example is the Volkswagen Up facelift. Maybe you've seen this video there. Same price kind of, but already better materials. Nice are those cloth seats. You see they're very wide, and I can already tell you so far they're indeed rather comfortable. Also for taller people, that will be no problem. Of course, the design, that's just a matter of preference. And then you see they're very slim doors here, also plain plastic. And you see they don't have too much space, but that again leaves you the space on the inside. So let's get inside with this comfort trim level. It is the higher trim level we have here. And there's really a lot of space for such a small car. I'm 1.86 m or 6'1", and I still have a lot of space above my head. Also here is rather roomy, so nothing to moan about that. You can adjust the back part of seats, also can pump it up right here or manually move to the front and the back. And the steering wheel cannot be pulled towards you, but can be moved up and down at least. And it is astonishing that even tall people can find a reasonable seating position here, and that's, I think, one of the good aspects of this car. Cockpit overview, really again very simple, and that's also the basic scheme, keeping it simple, keeping it basic. Also the climate controls are still manual work. I mean, it's not bad, it's still easy to control, also changing from air from outside to inside. Pretty basic. You put in the key, it's classic, and then you have classic instruments, more details to that soon. You can hard plastics. Some design element is here, this silver half circle as we have here, and this infotainment system. It doesn't feature a GPS. You can also get a GPS, but only with the accessory parts afterwards, kind of. So not from the plan itself. So, but it is available to order it at the dealer. Usually cars at this price are not ordered with GPS because it really puts the car price up. This one here at least has Bluetooth, so I can connect my phone to it, for example. And this for radio, so basic radio is available here, or again the Bluetooth connection. Shifting lever, manual 5-speed, and so actually quite nice to shift, and more about that when we drive the car. USB port in lower part, and also some 12-volt power supply. The steering wheel, you could say, hey, it's a racing steering wheel. There are no elements on it besides of Bluetooth and phone picking up buttons. But then, of course, it's to save money, not to offer this multifunctional, but still a good size. Then loft box, that does not slide down smoothly, but at least there's reasonable space in it. And more space at the inside of the doors. That's very slim. One small space left next to the steering wheel. And in the middle console, behind and in front of the manual handbrake here for beverages. Now the instruments, left side RPM meter, in the middle one the speed, and right some digital screen for fuel and auto consumption. You see how the consumption is like at the moment, and I think that's really okay. And to connect your phone via Bluetooth, you hit this button here, left next to the steering wheel. And then you can go to the Bluetooth setup right here, and then it's possible to see it in your smartphone, and you can connect it via Bluetooth. But watch out, it only works when the car is standing still. And if you're driving, it says not available. And yes, it is available, but stand still first. Then you can connect your phone via Bluetooth, and you have then Bluetooth streaming music, and also the telephone, and also the GPS voice sound if you have that on your smartphone with the GPS app or Maps app. In the AC unit in detail, you see it right here, how you can turn the stuff. Still manual work, but I mean, why not? It's not too bad. And what about the rear? That's always interesting with those mini cars. And see it right here. I mean, it's really not a long car, but the offering of space is still quite okay. You see, it doesn't really fit in here for 4 tall adults, because that's the seating position as I would be in the front. See, it doesn't really fit with my knees, but as the seat is rather soft, and I feel on the other side, yeah, no, it still would work. It doesn't, the pressure doesn't come through to the back of the driver. So I'm hitting it with my knees, but it's still possible because the back of the seat is soft. So I can sit here also. As for the headspace, putting that up. So yeah, it's not most comfortable, but you know, if you maybe below 6 foot, no problem, or below 1.80 meters. Here, maybe not for the longest trips, but I mean, if you consider that some of the compact cars we've testing have the same offering of space here, that is still rather reasonable. Then you can flip the seats from here with this strip, and then it looks like this. You to pull the head restraints down, and there's a small gap then to the trunk area, but then all of the trunk area is used, and we can look how it looks like from the rear now. Hardly do we still see this manual control. It's really funny, and it reminds me of my childhood doing this even in front of cars. Here it's still available for the rear drive, for the rear door, sorry, but you know, why not, to save some money, and also from beverages here. Everything, you know, pretty simple materials, but also solid, so not much can happening to it. In the trunk, as I said, open the key twice, and it's also opening here. And see, it's not that high, I have to bow down. But most of the space the car offers is being used, so it's also a good result. And as I said, here you can also flip the seats from here, just reach over that one, and then this is the setup. And of course you can remove that cover here quite easily as well. And then it's the setup like this. And it would be great actually if you could turn the front seat totally down. That's not happening. That's the maximum space, and if I put it in the front, this is all you got here. But again, for the size on the outside, a good result for the space on the inside. Welcome to the driving part with this 3-cylinder, 1-liter naturally aspirated engine, 68 horsepower, 0 to 100 kilometers, 13 seconds, and listen to the engine sound. It's quite remarkable, isn't it? And I really like the engine sound, because it's a naturally aspirated engine sound, and this not this turbo. It has a more low frequency sound, and it's really not a powerful engine. You really have to push the throttle that something is happening. But the amazing thing is that the engine really feels good. It feels like it would be a very, very good engine, and that always has something to do with just feeling the car, feeling the engine. From the sound, for example, I think the sound is really nice, really nice. Well, what do you think? And also, as it's non-turbocharged, we get a very harmonic acceleration. It means we don't have a point where we get a sudden boost. It's really like very harmonically going up in RPMs and as well as in the speed. And I like this characteristic in general. So, you know, what we've seen so far from the car, from exterior and interior, wasn't really amazing or spectacular. But the driving feeling of this car is really better than everything else is suggesting. And also this engine promised to be very durable, so that would be another good aspect. And of course, with such a small car in the city, you can also cruise around like this, left and right again, and also when you want to find any parking spot, you'll have no problem. The manual shifting, I would go for that one, because there's also this automated manual transmission available. However, that one is usually not a very good system. Some smaller cars offer that, but you really have to learn it, that you leave the throttle and go down again, that you don't have this effect. So just go with the manual here, and then you also don't put up the price that much, so you can easily live with that one here. And the good thing is that the shifting process is also rather smooth. So there's hardly any resistance when putting in the next gear, and so it's also fun to shift the car also. I mean, it's almost like a sporty shifting lever. In general, those smaller cars from Japan or Korea, they usually set on a rather soft suspension. That's the same thing we have here so far, so that gives you a lot of comfort when riding in city or going over some bumps. However, it's surely not the best suspension we've experienced, so we had other more refined suspensions, because even if the general setup is soft, when we are going over some, sudden bumps in the road, for example, gaps for, the covers of the sewage system, then it goes through, so it's not really the most refined suspension. So we also got some tilting to the left and the right when we go some slalom, but overall it's still fun to drive the car, and mainly due to the engine. And we will soon also go short stop on the motorway, and then you'll see how it performs at the higher speeds over all those 30 seconds from 0 to 100 kilometers or 0 to 60 miles an hour. It's of course not impressive, but it's also not what this small car is made of. The main thing for me is really that from driving, it's really fun to drive, and it conveys a better feeling than what we've seen before from the car, and also from the cheap plastics everywhere, which is really not anything you would be attached to, but you could theoretically be attached to driving this car. The steering is not really direct, but I mean still okay. See it right here. It works, and it's also light enough that you can turn it easily around in a parking spot or in front of a mall and whatsoever. And I'll also test it again when we're driving at the higher speeds. By the way, to adjust the mirrors, you can also do it while driving, at least for the left side. But that's of course a disadvantage of having the manual control, that on the right side you cannot do this, because you could theoretically, but it might be a little bit dangerous if you're reaching up to this right side that much. Also controlling the temperature stuff it's not too low. You can also do it while driving without getting too much distracted. It's a 5-speed manual one, so I could also go to the 5th gear now and just let the car roll. And also due to this naturally aspirated engine, the consumption is staying relatively low. And I've driven quite a long way with this car now here already, and I cannot really change the average fuel figure. It's kind of always remaining the same, and it's here 5.4 liters on 100 kilometers. It's just staying that way, and I think that's a good figure. It's of course not a heavy car, and that still shows us that those turbo engines quite often really boost the acceleration as well. They boost the performance, but also the consumption figures, and that's not happening here then, of course. So also the engine, when you keep it at the lower RPMs, is relatively silent, and at those city speeds here also the sound insulation is fair enough. And you will also see when the start-stop function also works usually. I'm not sure if it works right now because I have the AC on. Maybe it still does. Yeah, it does, and then it shows me like a green symbol here in the front of. And also when standing still here and looking at the intersection, traffic passing by, you feel that it's relatively silent here indeed. And usually with a lot of small cars we don't have such a good sound insulation, but here I think it's fairly well done, definitely. Another main aspect here about this car is also that you got a very good overview to all of the sides, because all of the windows are really steep, no matter right or left, so you got a perfect overview really and feel very, from the inside you feel very secure. So because you exactly know where the car is, where it's ending to each of the sides. However, there's, especially in Germany, one big disadvantage, and I've experienced it a lot, especially on the motorway. Here, by the way, acceleration now again, I'll show you some 20. and that's 70 now. But somehow still funny, the sound, isn't it? And almost really sports car like. So that's really fun. And of course, not so much is happening then going forward, and that's also the case if you can't accelerate that fast, and if you have a small car, especially being in Germany, you get bullied a lot by bigger vehicles. And for example, yesterday I managed to go 160 kilometers an hour with this car here on the motorway, and that still worked. I mean, the car wasn't feeling that unstable, and actually a quite good feeling still, quite good handling for such a high speed, where this car is definitely not set for. But even at those speeds, and some Audi A8 come from behind, and if you would be an Audi driver yourself in front of that car, it would be no problem, because the speed is definitely enough also. But here with a small car, you really get bullied a lot. And people think, he's not capable of, or maybe there's a young girl in the car, and therefore I can, keep no distance to the car in front of me and try to annoy and say, oh yeah, I'm the greatest car driver on earth. And that's really a pity that that's happening, and I'm always experiencing it when driving small cars. Because, usually it would make more sense if more people drive small cars, because they take less traffic space. So it's better for overall for the city traffic, and of course they use less of fuel because they are not that heavy in the cars. And for most of the ways we do on a daily commute, also smaller cars are really sufficient. But then again, you have a disadvantage that it's sometimes even more dangerous to drive a small car because of the other drivers. It's really a pity, and if you have a big car, maybe consider this aspect and always think about that maybe smaller cars are not that capable from a performance, and just relax and take your time. So we're going on the motorway now. I can also show you this acceleration when the car is a little bit faster, for example 70 to 100. Let's go now. And that's it, 100. So when everything done in third gear, as you see, there isn't so much of performance, so much happening. But still you can drive the car on the motorway now in fifth gear, and some of you are always interested in speed to RPM ratio. For example, now I'm driving 100 kilometers an hour, and we are about 2,500 RPM. I mean, for such a small engine, that's a good result. And it still, as I said, feels okay to drive the car. It's not too much tilting, and well, here now when going fast, you see the steering wheel is a little bit dead in the first few degrees. It doesn't feel that natural, but overall I don't feel that the car would get out of control. And of course, what you also hear on camera when I'm driving about 100 kilometers an hour, it gets relatively noisy in here because the car is also not set mainly on those speeds here. There's no cruise control that is available. I mean, at some point you have to save. But if I would get a call, I could easily also answer it with those hotkeys button here. So it's nice that we have the Bluetooth connection. And if I would have, for example, a GPS system on my mobile phone running right now, as soon as you have the Bluetooth connection, also the voice commands are transported over the car's sound system. And so you can kind of have an easily mounted up GPS without having an inbuilt GPS as well. So that works. Getting off the motorway, you see here, it can be a little bit racy. Again, fun to drive with that engine. So overall, what I can take from driving is, in driving the car holds more than it suggests, and especially the engine makes a really good impression. So probably, and who would have expected that, the engine here is, I think, the best part of this tiny car. So what can we conclude in the Suzuki Celerio? From the exterior, it's more like form follows function and nothing really spectacular. From the inside, well, we don't see so much high-class materials. Everything is kept really simple, but then also easy to control. On the interior, we've seen really other competitors that are better in the interior. And I mean, for example, in Germany, you get other better interior cars for the same price. But from market to market, it's of course a little bit different, because this car is on some markets among the cheapest cars you can get. And then from driving, that was a real surprise. It's a really good tiny engine with a good feeling, with a rather good sound, and also the ratio from performance to consumption, that's really good. So that's it from my side. I also want to hear your opinion on exterior, interior and the driving. Maybe you have some experience with this car so far, or thinking about buying it. Put me that one all in the comments. Thank you very much for watching Autogefühl, and I'm sure we'll see each other at our next episode.